Welcome to Building Great Sales Teams, a show dedicated to making sales teams tick, tick, boom. Great sales teams are not recruited, they are built, block by block. Let's get to work.
Is pandemonium. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. We had 60 something demos booked while we were there.
Yeah.
To give you perspective, we usually will have like 30 a week. So we had 60 book while we're there, and then another like 60 or 70 online. So, it's quadruple or more than what we're used to. And then it stopped, like, even though people have to book at least a week out, we had a record day for demos yesterday. We had a record day for sales. So yeah, it's fun. It's just good, steady growth.
Are the conversion rates holding that y'all normally have off the demos? Y'all track all that, or?
Yeah, so far, especially just them sitting down and meeting with us, because, we'll always have 20-30% no show, but everybody's meeting with us because they actually met us at the event. So they're all sitting down. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, you have that in-person interaction first, and then that kind of increases your conversion rate in general, right?
I just saw this pretty fun. Well, I won't share my script unless you want me to, but it was like, we have a picture of this guy who's on a demo, and guy on my team says, it's always nice when you join a demo and the guy's already wearing your swag.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because they were at the show and he got a hat, which is, I'm like, how'd that happen? Like, this guy's wearing
show the picture. Yeah.
Show it, yeah.
I gave you an option to share it.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, there's
nice. You're in the demo and he's already wearing the swag.
He's like starting off with like wearing one of our hats. So it's fun when people are
awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, SolarCon was incredible. I'm so happy that, for a first show, blew me away. Not just saying that, blew me how effective it was. And the thing I love the most is we haven't had, our industry is still young, and I don't think people realize that. We have Solar Power International, aka SPI. That is where a lot of sales guys don't even know that exists. At its peak, 20,000 people go into this event. It's usually in Anaheim or Las Vegas. Last year was supposed to be in New Orleans, and the flood they had with the storm and COVID again. So, but only installers go to that. And then the sales guys, they don't get to see all the manufacturers and everything. And then you have the other extreme of like door-to-door con, Knockstar too. And so again, you don't have the installers, they're just sales. And so this was fun to see both groups finally have a convention where they were mixed. And so it was really fun for me to get to see, I work with both sides and get to see both sides. And we even had some manufacturers there, right? Like we had SunPower, we had stores, and so it'll be fun to watch that thing grow. And I bet it will be triple next year because it was pretty fun. So I know all the vendors got a lot out of it. I know the everybody that went to it got a really huge value out of it. So incredible event for Quativa. We're booked out for weeks, so it was really fun.
No, that's great. And that's the perfect place for y'all to be. I think it's going to be a huge staple in y'all's business moving forward. So, all right, guys, we got Jess Phillips. What's your official title? I don't even know. I've always just called you a partner in Quativa.
Yeah, Chief Sales Officer. Yep.
Chief Sales Officer with Quativa. So we signed on with you guys. What was it, about 6 to 8 months ago, something like that?
Yeah.
And you guys were somewhat early in the process. You know what I mean? So we kind of got to see you guys grow and kind of adapt and fix things within the system and everything. So, we've had a very fluid relationship from that. And, one of my favorite things about you guys is that immediately, we asked for help and you guys were right there with it, because you're all from the industry. So that's one of the things that I noticed right away was we had these resources, whether it be you for sales, Lisa for financing, that we were able to use right away to educate our guys. And that's huge in any type of relationship, and especially like in a sales organization where you have these support structures in place for them to be from the business. It helps a lot. So I guess let's kick it off with you introducing yourself and kind of give us your history a little bit and how you got to Quativa.
Yeah, I've been doing solar for 13 years, started in 2010. I'd done a little bit of door-to-door stuff before that, learned from some of the best in the industry, and went to corporate America for 4 years, had the rough edges taken off me there, and then working for a big Fortune 50 company. Got to meet my business partner who was an executive there, and we started a solar company in 2010. Like probably a lot of you guys listening or getting started in the industry, just knock some doors to get it started. It didn't have financing, didn't have, microinverters. Like the panel we were selling was a 185 watt panel. So
wow.
Nobody had it on their roof. We were in
what year was that?
2010.
Okay. Yeah, that was early. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've seen a lot change, right? So we built that company, started doing, at its peak, we were doing hundreds of residential sales and installs per month in 4 different states: Oregon, Idaho, Utah, Denver, Colorado. And then we started to get into some pretty big commercial stuff, built projects like these office buildings. With this one actually won an award for construction. And big one was Rio Tinto Stadium, which is the pro soccer team, Real Salt Lake Stadium in Utah. And then so some fun pictures here of that project. 2 megawatts. It's the 4th largest pro sports venue in America with solar. So fun. That was 2015. We got to flip the switch on that with the CEO of our utility company showed up, and the owner of the team. So that was a fun project. The biggest one that we did though was Soleil Lofts. Soleil means the sun in French, and fun project. 600 batteries and 5.3 megawatts of Solaria solar panels. So it's an off-grid apartment complex. It can run off-grid, but what makes it extra unique is that it has 600 of these Sonnen batteries in the living room of 600 apartments. And the utility actually buys power from the apartment complex during peak times at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. They'll drain those batteries and distribute that power out to the grid, and they'll pay the apartment owner, the guy that built these projects, a premium for that power. And so there's the actual project as we built it. That's another indoor soccer stadium right behind it, the red building that we put solar on.
Wow.
That's 1.3 megawatts on the roof of. So it gives you a perspective. That red roof is 1.3 megawatts, and there's 5.3 megawatts throughout the community between the carports and roof. So about 4, you can look at that red roof and there's about 4 times more solar in that community. Now these are higher wattage panels too. They're Solaria 435s, but yeah, really fun project. Learned a lot those 10 years. And then we basically sold it when COVID hit. We sold residential just before COVID hit. And then we had a lot of commercial contracts, and a lot of those froze up and canceled when COVID hit. So we ended up moving on from the business, and I saw Quativa about 2 years ago, actually right now. And we launched publicly basically about a year ago, launched California, Arizona, Texas, Florida. And so it's been a wild ride to see, the first year just trying to get it ready, trying to get the app to a place where people can actually sell. And it took longer than you always expect. The idea has been around for 4 years. There's been 4 years of 7 figures invested into building it to where it's at. And now today, we're in 15 states right now. 2 months ago, we were in 6, and in another month we'll be in 30 total. And then we'll take a break for probably the rest of the year. And actually we'll keep adding a few more, but some smaller, ones that aren't as big, like maybe like the Wyomings and Idahos will come on board in Q3. Northeast will be next year. So we're going to have about 30 states here in the next 30 days. And so it's fun to see us expand geographically. We got our Series A funding in October. So that's really exciting. So we're able to put more money into developing the app, expanding our footprint. And so, what Quativa does, right, the specialty is a technology platform that has everything in place for you to sell solar. And then we're going to drive the performance of getting it installed on your behalf. So our sales dealers have red lines with us, and we go drive the performance with all our install partners, because we pick small and medium businesses, to be our partners. So they're nimble, they communicate well. And we have a big stick and a big carrot with how many jobs we have to offer our partners. So our average install time right now is 27 days across all markets. And because of how we built the structure and how we model it, it puts us in a unique position to be able to do that for our partners. So the goal is, if you're selling solar, Quativa makes it easy to sell it through our app, and then we'll take care of the project management installation, so you can just focus on generating revenue. So that's Quativa in my background.
So let me unwrap some of that, because not all the listeners that I have are in solar. Some of them are in construction, other small businesses. They're hiring their first salesperson, right? And so let me back up and unwrap that a little bit. So you started a solar company with your partner back in 2010. Is that correct? And so so you were in solar for 8 years before you got to Quativa. Is that about right?
10, yeah.
Okay, 10 years. And so in that time, you built out a residential division, you built out a commercial division, but the commercial division was kind of like, you guys were kind of like the Michael Jordan's solar and commercial. You know what I mean? Y'all, you won an award for one of those for that apartment complex community you were talking about, right? What was that award?
It's called Utility Project of the Year.
Okay.
Screen, yeah. But yeah, so we were in the area. I would say, yeah, we definitely did some groundbreaking stuff. We had some incredible people on our team.
So how did you go from being, what I'm assuming was, okay, so you were sales centric first, working in door to door, and then you got into the corporate world, right? And so do you feel like those two experiences kind of meshed together when you opened up your own business and you were able to kind of bring that experience together?
Yeah, there's the project too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think that's a great question. The way I'd say it is, there was an interview in 2017. We were finalists for Entrepreneur of the Year, and you get interviewed for that. And like, hey, I remember getting those questions, and it was really fun to kind of hear what your answers are going to be on the spot for yourself.
Yeah.
One of the questions was like, hey, in your history, what was one of the things that was most impactful for you to be where you're at? And it was funny because it was without even, done a lot of different jobs, worked at an amusement park at 14, and for guys that know Utah, and all kinds of stuff, but it was not even close. The answer was knocking doors, was the most impactful thing in my career, and it will always be that. Even if I get asked that question 10 years from now, I'm not going to say, oh, when I was a CEO of my own company. No,
right.
It still will be what I learned knocking doors was the most impactful. Communication skills, dealing with rejection. Even the best door-to-door guys getting rejected most of the time. So if you're really good, you're still losing more than half the time. It's like baseball.
Half the time, yeah.
Yeah. It's like
numbers
baseball.
are the numbers.
If you're batting, if you're at 30%, like you're a all-star, So so I learned the most doing that. I was fortunate to the 1 year I did it, like the summer sales program was in Miami, Florida, and it was 2008, a weird year to be selling, and that the economy crashed that year. And I didn't even know what the word economy meant. I was 22,
right?
Just got married and had a baby and all that, so it was scary. But
so you weren't using that excuse along with everybody else.
I didn't even know,
because you didn't have it.
But it's fun because my manager, that is the Michael Jordan of door-to-door sales. His name's Adam Shantz. Owns all their security, a huge company now. And so I got to learn from the best along the way. That's one of the things I've been fortunate of. And ironically, I'm actually driving there after this to go talk to this company. We're talking about using Quativa. We just met him at SolarCon. So
beautiful.
On how things come full circle, but absolutely the most impactful thing was door to door. But there's a lot you don't learn some of the other things you need to learn. So going to corporate America really helped me learn how to interview people the right way, like the laws around certain things, just how to, some of the formalities you need to have before you own a business. And so I think one extreme door to door and another extreme working in corporate America, without those two experiences, I wouldn't have had a chance in running a company. Because when we started that company, I think our ceiling was we might have 15 employees, and hopefully we can take a Friday off every once in a while and make enough money to buy a nice car and live in a nice house. It wasn't anything more than that. And the next thing we knew, there's 260 employees and $300,000 weekly payroll and all kinds of crazy stuff that comes with it. So luckily we had some incredible.
In order to scale like that, out of those, you said 260 employees.
Yeah.
How many were sales centric?
We had about a dozen sales reps in each state, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. So you're looking at, about 40 or so.
Okay, so you scaled up to 40 sales reps at one point, and then what was the residential and commercial mix, or were you selling the commercial?
Yeah, commercial, a lot more development. We had a team of 3 guys that were commercial sales or development.
Okay.
And then a lot of project support for residential, commercial. About 40 residential, 3 to 5 commercial dedicated, and then install crews. We were probably between 12 and 16 install crews at any given time.
Gotcha. And on the residential team, so you got up to about 35 to 37, it sounds like. And then in different states, so you had basically these teams separated by location, right? How did you structure those teams?
Yeah, great question. We would have a leader that lived there for sure, that was there every day over the sales team. And then we had a leader over the operations / installation. And so those 2 were in charge of that market. And then they would report to one leader that was at headquarters in Salt Lake, and that leader would be over all of residential sales, and there'd be a leader over all of operations for all 4 markets. So that's how we structured that. That included operations, both internal support staff, permitting, design, things like that, and also the construction crews.
Yeah,
our crews were usually 3 to 4 man crews.
And on the sales side, in terms of the sales team and the way that leader led the sales team, how was it kind of structured there in terms of like, did y'all meet every day? Was it meet out in territory, or was it meet in the office? Was there an office?
Yeah, I definitely had a building for each of them. Try to create a good work environment where they can have a culture and get together. Let's think, especially with that eternal battle of sales and operations, it's important they work in the same building. They constantly see each other and feel each other and get to hear the conversations that each side has to deal with. Because that operation guy, when his brain, when it hears the conversations the sales guy has to have, he cringes. He doesn't want to ever do that. And he learns, respects that differently, and vice versa. So, and so I think it's huge for those guys to have a place they can see each other work and see each other's jobs and what they're like.
Just for some context, for sure, for those 2 things to work together.
And then you asked, like, as far as meetings and stuff, like always had like a Monday meeting, the sales team would do. And then sometimes they'd have like some door knock, there'd be some door knockers, some setters. Some markets had 2 guys, some had 7 or 8. And they typically have kind of an extra meeting after or later in the week. And then I would travel to those markets usually once a quarter, sometimes twice a quarter, and go visit them and just have a bigger meeting and just tell them about, future things that are coming, and just answer, Q&A, and just spend time with them and on the front lines and see what they're dealing with, and connect with them and build relationships.
So for the people listening that have those bigger teams in multiple markets, when you did come into that market and you had a meeting, did you have a structure in place, or was it more fluid, reactive kind of thing, where you address the issues in that market at the time?
Typically go up there with a plan. There'd be like maybe a new solar panel or new product that's coming, that we're going to be talking about, some sort of change, upgrades to our sales presentation. So I typically came with something visual that they were going to see on the projector or whatever. Sometimes there was more of that, sometimes there was less of that. So I usually came and had some things to definitely talk about, which is what triggered me to usually come up there, is something we're trying to improve and get better at. And I wanted to show them what's coming, get them on board, help them see what we saw. Hey, this is why we're going to be using this inverter or this panel now. So typically I had something like that. And then, I love to just open up to do Q&A. I think that's, there's 2 things I would say that are really valuable that I found with those type of meetings when you're leading teams. Obviously Q&A, you can get it. Like, you get to hear the type of things they have questions about, helps you see like where their head's really at, where their culture is at, where the training is lacking, the questions they ask. I mean, I just did a couple interviews for new hires, and I actually like to have them ask me more questions than, like, I get so much out of just hearing the questions they have that I can see what type of person they are and who they are. So I love that. One best practice that I found over the years that's when I've shared it with others that really enjoyed it, is I always end every group meeting with what we call roundtable. And it's where we literally just stand up, because if people are standing, they'll talk, they'll be
Yeah.
more concise. So maybe I might need to stand up here in a second, but have everybody stand up. Hey, 30 seconds, you go around the room and everybody gets a voice. And it's basically like, shout out a team member, a win you had. Hey, I closed this deal yesterday. Shout out to Sean. He trained me last week on this thing and it helped me close the deal. Or, hey, I'm really excited about the new features you just told us out of this new panel. So it gives everybody a voice to speak something that's generally positive. And we're all standing in the circle at the end, and we just kind of creates that really fun, good vibes. It's kind of cheesy, but it gives the warm fuzzies a little bit. And again, it reinforces a culture of positivity and connection and working together to help each other out. So everybody usually enjoys that quite a bit. And then as a leader, it's super valuable because you get to see how you left them and how, where their heads are really at.
Right.
And typically the power of that end roundtable meeting tells you how you did and how, where they're at, where you're leaving them. So one of my favorite parts about business was usually those roundtables, whether big kickoff meetings all the way down to the weekly meetings, and getting to hear people's success stories and what's on their mind and how their teammates are helping them is a really fun way to enhance your culture and learn what's going on.
Nice. And I feel like it opens up the transparency a little bit, and as each of them are a little more vulnerable or transparent, then the team becomes a lot more cohesive, and you kind of leave them in that space where, hey, it's okay to share your frustrations about the position that maybe the person right next to you created. I'm reading Powerful right now, and I can't remember the author's name, but she's the culture chief culture officer over at Netflix. And so she talks about, after going through a lot of the principles that she has, she also talks about transparency and how, like, almost brutal transparency, once you get through that initial uncomfortableness of it, because some of the things are a shock that you're bringing up, or, don't shed good light. Once you start doing that, then you do it at a micro level consistently, and the team gets to the goal a lot faster, right? Because they're already sharing, well, that's not working. What you're doing right there is not working in this aspect, and they share it right away, and they're not afraid of it anymore, and they don't let it build up to a much bigger problem later on. You know what I'm saying? And so have you found that you've taken that kind of roundtable deal to Quativa now? Because you guys are more operation centric, I would assume now.
Yeah, we're remote. We're doing Zoom. So I'm shocked at how we still have been able to create a great culture even over remote. And we do it at the end of our town hall. We call it now weekly meeting, and we call it shout outs just to kind of help push it in a certain direction. But I love what you said about, it'll be with me forever. I'll always do it that way. I think it also helps everybody feel like they got a voice, and it forces some of the people that never say anything in the meetings to actually say something. And it's funny because they usually have some great stuff to say. And so it's really fun. But I think, go ahead.
So the term's a little overused now, right? But the term behind mastermind. So obviously we both attend a lot of mastermind setting type deals, right? And it's always funny to see when they open it up. They're like, okay, tell me about some problems you're having in your business, and nobody wants to talk. And then finally one person starts it. Yeah. And theirs is very general, and it's not vulnerable, right? And then by like the sixth person that shares, it's like completely vulnerable. Like, I'm having problems in my marriage. My business is taking over my marriage. And now we're getting to the real shit, So I feel like the same thing happens in those group settings. And I'm doing the same thing on my rock calls right now, which is the weekly calls. We work under the EOS system. And so every week we have that call, and we go over our rocks, we go over our tasks, and our IDS and all that.
We just started that at Quativa. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's a really good system, especially if you're a sales org and you've never really done operational type stuff, and you're having to, because now you're recruiting and you're hiring, you've got systems in place. Well, that once a week meeting for the ops side of your business to come together is huge. But anyways, so what is kind of next for you? You know what I mean? In terms of Quativa. Well, I do want to say, I do want to shout you guys out big time though, because I feel like now that you guys are doing it, there's a lot of other ones popping up now trying to do the same thing, but you guys are kind of ahead of the curve on that. But it was definitely very needed because there is a lot of sales orgs out there that have done nothing but sell. And the operations piece is a whole nother animal. It's like you've got, a visionary and integrator, but a sales org is the visionary. And, in this case, Quativa is the integrator, right?
Yeah.
Basically making all that stuff happen on the back end. And it really does take a lot off of our solar division. We have so many moving pieces on that, and it kind of brings them all together and streamlines them and everything. I guess the question is, how did you go from kind of eating what you kill to being in a support position with the company? I guess, how did they sell you on that? Because Quativa kind of recruited you, right? Or
yeah, we met at the same, both ways, really. It just just seemed meant to be, like a lot of things in life. And yeah, so going from my own business to what I do now, it's been a huge, I love it. I feel like it's put me in my natural position to like more focused on partnerships and building teams and training and things
relationships.
Working on just the things that when you're a CEO or you start a business, you learn to do everything. You have to at some point. But getting to the point where you finally realize, like, I was doing some executive coaching stuff the last couple of years that I was there, and he helped me realize, like, you don't have, even as a CEO, you don't have to be everything. You don't have to be the expert on the financials or anything. You have people to do that. So what happens is, I think as a business owner, you try to show that you can do it all. And then eventually what happens is you water down your biggest strengths and you're not doing them as much. So I feel like with what I was able to do here is just focus on what I like doing the most. And that's a lot of times what you're best at anyway. So building the partnerships that's really all I did well at before. That's why we got these big projects, is I just put the right people together, and you have people that are just absolutely super smart that do their role really well and know how to actually do all this stuff. So yeah, I get to focus more on what I like to do and what my strengths are, and still have a lot of fun building a company and have input on all parts of the business. And so that's been good for me. I love it. I think the trust that, if you're gonna transition from owning your own business to not completely, like, I think, being the only person that calls the shots, it's more about, is that just your ego, or is that really that important? Because I think you can find the right partners, the right people to work for, that will still give you the freedom and the creativity. Because I think where owning your own business is unhealthy is when it's about your ego and I got to be my own boss. I mean,
right.
I loved having a business partner. I love having somebody I get to report to in a way and say, look what's happening. This is awesome. Or I failed on this. Like, I want someone to be accountable to. And I think people think the word accountable is always a negative word. It's not fun when you have a bunch of success and there's nobody sitting next to you and you don't have anybody to share it with. So I really enjoy the accountability. I really enjoy the people I work with. I don't miss owning the business myself or with a partner completely. Like, I like building. I think most of us, when our ego's in check, why we like running our own business is more about building something versus like being my own boss. And I don't want somebody to tell me what to do. It's like, well, if you're in a place like that, you're just in the wrong place. I travel for work a lot. Dallin, my CEO, has never one time told me, hey, you need to go here or there. Hey, it's time for me to go to this market. I'm going. Like, when you have a certain level of trust and all that, like, the best thing you can do as an employer, if you do own your own business, is give them the trust and the flexibility to go create. As soon as you stifle that creativity, like, you're going to miss out on, what they really can do, and you're going to water it down. So I think most of us, it's about building, and I'm definitely in a position where I get to still build and be creative and be trusted that way. So in a lot of ways, it's better. I mean, it's better for me financially. I feel more stable. As a business owner, I think people can relate. There's days where you think you've made it and you can go look at Lamborghinis, and literally a week later you're like, cancel the vacation, we're screwed, you know?
We got to make payroll.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
it's a hard thing. So in every way it's been better for me. And not saying I'm not done, you know, in the future, maybe open a business again or whatever, but really, really genuinely enjoy the role because I get to be creative, I get to build. And I think at our heart, that's really what we want the most. And in some ways, owning your business doesn't put you in a position to be able to just build. Sometimes you just got to hit this, you got to do that. So, you know, having capital and having somebody else focused on that stuff is really helpful to have good teammates that help you get a focus on the parts that you enjoy.
Yeah, and that's the deal. When you have capital, you get to build it the way you want it. And when you don't have capital, you have to cut corners and you have to do it the way the money wants it. You know what I'm saying? Because if the money runs out, the money is your boss. You know what I mean? The money runs out, then the business isn't there anymore. I think you hit on a lot of things that, especially for my guys that are in their 20s that are listening to this, need to hear. You know, which is having your business card say owner on it. And I know we don't use business cards anymore, but having your business card say owner on it shouldn't be the only reason you want to start your own business or to continue to run your own business and not partner up or not, you know, because there's guys that are running businesses out there that maybe do $500,000 a year that could have so much more impact and have such better relationships and so much more purpose in a business that's doing $20 million a year, but they're the, you know, VP of sales or something like that, you know, or they're the COO, you know, that fit better into that business. And so what we miss out on oftentimes is, you know, this huge thing that can have an amazing impact because, you know, our ego gets in the way and we want that owner. And the same thing happens in reverse. If you have a sales team, you know, first of all, like if you're recruiting the right people, they're going to be entrepreneurial minded, right? So what's going to happen in that process at some point, they're going to get to a point where they're like, oh, well, I can just do this myself, you know? And like you said earlier, if you haven't given them that freedom of creativity and that freedom to go and build and that freedom to go and have impact with their team, and you've tried to like manage their position, then they're going to go and build their own thing. So one of the blessings that I recognized early on is that I didn't want to do other people's job for them. So I put them in the position, even if they weren't quite qualified for it yet. And I let them figure it out and then led them as much as I could because I was figuring it out myself in my position and it was only one notch above theirs. Right. And so as I let that happen, of course, people are going to take advantage and you're going to have to fire fast, but you have to put people in roles that they can grow into. And then let them grow into it, let them fail, you know what I mean? And support them along the way, lead them as much as you can without micromanaging them. And you're going to build this amazing thing that has actual impact, you know? And so I think another thing that you hit on was the relationships that you have with everybody at Quativa and some of those relationships you had before you got into the business. And, you know, you came with a reputation as well, having just sold your solar business. And as you get older, that becomes more important, you know, the relationship and the purpose behind the relationship than the actual numbers or the dollars per year or whatever the case is. So I really want my guys that are listening to this in your 20s to hear that piece and everything that you said and make, you know, all those points and everything. So I'm kind of curious as we kind of wrap up here, because I just spoke to Bennett Maxwell, and he told me, kind of walked me through the sell of his business and why it was even sellable, right? Because typically sales orgs, you know, aren't really sellable, you know, because if the leader in the company leaves, typically what you see is things fall apart. The only time you can really sell is to another company that's doing the same thing, and they're more trying to get market share. You know, they're just absorbing you, you know what I mean? And so obviously y'all were on the operations end too, you know. So what would you say were some of the things you did to prepare yourself for that exit? And I'm guessing because COVID hit, it came a lot faster than you thought it would, right? But obviously y'all were preparing yourself for that exit along the way. I have to believe in order to be sellable like that.
Yeah, it's quite a story. I mean, just to be clear too, like there wasn't a successful exit when COVID hit. We had $130 million in commercial contracts just freeze or cancel in a week. And so we had brought on an investor, and he just said, I'm tired, I'm done. We had enough money that didn't matter to him, but it was 10 years of our life. So it wasn't successful, but I did definitely get to learn a lot about the process, because we actually had a deal on the table and we're ready to sign it to restructure our business. And then the 2 years before that, we got really close to doing a really big transaction when we were a little bit different company. So definitely been through the process a lot, with a lot of equity partners and equity firms. So, as far as prepping for that, I would just say, I'm a big believer that if that's your only goal in mind and that's all you're thinking about, it's just like when you finally learn, and some people don't learn this till later, if you're only focused on making money, it just seems, it's just such a, like, go focus on something much bigger than that, and the money is just a byproduct. And I believe that's the same with building a business, is like, go build a business as if you're building it you're going to be there for your life. Yeah. And I think if you have that focus, you'll get to that other thing you want, or, the option of it a lot quicker. I feel like when we were at our best, that's where our mindset was. And then when I started getting really focused on an exit and stuff, you start thinking differently. And I guess the best way to say it is you start serving another group or another thing. So I always say, you have your customers. Right. You got to take care of customers. Like, first of all, you have your employees. If you take care of employees, they'll take care of the customers. So you have the business you got to feed, make sure the business is healthy. You got your employees, you got to make sure they're taken care of, and your customers. When you start bringing in investors or thinking about selling, now you've got a fourth thing to satisfy. And it's like, that's a lot of different things you're trying to satisfy, and sometimes they conflict with the other. So just like in your personal life, it's like, you got your wife, you got your job, you got and if you try to bring on too much, eventually you can't do it all. And you start one of them is going to fail. And if you don't take care of your customers, your employees, because you're so worried about this thing over here, you won't have a business that's viable that will sell. So really focus in on your team and taking care of your customers, and the financials will show up. And then when the financials are healthy, the investors will be there. So absolutely. Working with I think if it's your first time doing it, there's a lot of really good firms. I did this, and I'd recommend it, that will consult you. They usually are going to charge you about a 3% fee. So if you sell your company for $10 million, like, big deal, right? They're going to help you sell it for way more than their fee. It's just like in real estate with a realtor, but way more valuable with this, because they're also going to bring buyers. They're also going to have a reputation with buyers, that they're not going to represent a company that's crappy, or that after they get under the hood and look at your business, it's going to make them look bad. It's just like if a realtor sells you a house that's complete crap, they're going to get a bad reputation. They're going to be out of business pretty quickly. So I absolutely think you want to be represented. You never want to do that on your own. And then they'll come into your business and you tell them, hey, I'm thinking about selling in a year or two. What if you are thinking of selling, you want to definitely do at least a year head start. And they'll come in and tell you, okay, here's where you need to clean this up. Just like a realtor, they're going to come through your house, say, paint this, do that. Don't even worry about the garage. Don't worry about that. Like, they're going to tell you where it doesn't matter to tune up your business, and where it does. But you can absolutely sell a sales organization for money. There's plenty of companies that do it. What you're looking for is, like you said, it's hard if it's just because one guy is a great leader. You want to do a system that produces leaders, that attracts sales reps, so that if they all left, you can show a system of, we had this whole great team of 30 guys, and we retained this many, but look how many new ones we can train and attract new ones and get them selling this. So if you can build a successful system, I mean, sales brings revenue. So there's a value in that, but you got to do it after building an actual system. And a lot of guys just like, cool, I'm going to wake up Monday morning, go in the office, shoot from the hip and do a bunch of training and then go get it, guys. Like, no, you got to build a real brand, a real system where you're able to show a system to recruit, a system to train, a system to have them sell successfully. And if you build a successful sales engine or a reliable revenue engine, very valuable to a company. You can build a reliable revenue engine. That's what you're trying to build.
Amazing. So just to summarize, and then we can wrap up. The first thing is don't worry about the exit, right? Focus on your business, focus on your employees, which are your customers as the owner of the business, right? And I love what Gary Vee says about that. He's like, it always trips me out how many people think that their employees work for them. No, you work for your employees, and then they produce the product and the service to the customer and fulfillment. And so that's huge. Basically, keep your head down and do the work. And then what's going to happen is someone's going to notice and they're going to approach you, right?
Yep.
And then if you do want to go the more formal route, prepare for it a year ahead of time and hire help, right? That's the biggest thing right there. So, hey, Jess, I really appreciate you taking the time out. This has been a very compact but insightful conversation. I think the listeners are going to get a lot from. If they want to reach out to you, whether it's about Quativa or just have questions for you or anything like that, where would they do that
at? Instagram, Phillips.Jess, Phillips, and then .Jess like Jesse, just JESS, and then Quativa.com, QUATIVA.
Awesome. Fantastic. Again, thanks for coming on to the show. Building great sales teams, and let's get building.
Awesome, Doug. Thanks for letting me on.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. Remember, great sales teams are not recruited. They are built block by block. Until next time.